Check, 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 1, 2, check, 1, 2. Check, 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 1, 2, check, 1, 2. Well, we are back with Sunday's message again. Because of the choppiness, I recorded again this week and found that it didn't work. The sound didn't work. So here I am again. Just want to double check this is working because I'm going to jump into the message right after. Because of the choppiness, I recorded. There you go. I heard the sound of my voice, which isn't always easy for the person who's doing the speaking to hear the sound of their own voice. Let's see if I can fix this table, and then I'm going to jump into the message. There we go. So, on Sunday, again, we had an opportunity to talk about getting out of the boat. Out of the Boat is a series that we're in right now, but it is the theme for the year. Now, again, I wasn't looking for a theme. I basically felt that God was just speaking to us to get out of the boat. If you look at a few messages that we had in the fall, the morning that Stephen Wesley was here, I was preaching and shared some things about getting out of the boat. And then that evening, Stephen also brought it up, but it was also something that was just in my heart for the last 3 months as we looked at moving into 2022. So I believe that this message is important. This theme is important for the year. This series is important for the church, so much so that I'm willing to record and preach this message 3 times just to make sure I get it right along the way. Fear not is our message today. Fear not. And last week we talked about risk. We talked about when you get out of the boat, there is an element of risk. You're getting out on choppy water, stormy water, and you're believing that you're going to walk on water towards Jesus. And there also is an element of fear because who knows, that's just a scary situation that you're stepping into, and we do this all the time in life. We get opportunities to step into scary situations. I was on the island of Caye Caulker back many years ago when I was on a missions trip in Belize. Belize has its own set of keys just off the coast, right near the second biggest barrier reef in the world. And I had an opportunity for 2 days during that 2-week missions trip to go out to the island of Caye Caulker. And so I got in the boat, beautiful day, sunny day, talking with the other passengers, found there was a couple other Christians there. And so we headed out towards the island, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, comes this storm. 6 foot, 8 foot swells, and wind, and just crazy weather. And does the guy slow down? No, he just keeps going, bouncing over these waves. Gets us to the island, we get out of the boat, step onto the island, and he takes off as fast as he can. And we notice everybody else is afraid, running around, looking all crazy. And we stopped and asked someone, and they told us that there was a hurricane headed towards the island. Now, I told many of you this story before, but I think it's so important to talk about it here because it was the time in my life that God showed me that I have a lot of fear in my life, that I deal with a lot of fear. I try to pretend, or did try to pretend, that I was invincible or a strong man or whatever I thought I was, a hero back in the day. But I just found out that there was absolutely nothing that I could actually do without Jesus. And God said to me during that time, you have a great deal of many fears that you deal with. I remember that night as I tried to sleep, as the waves are crashing against that barrier reef, it just sounded like a drum. There's not a sound that I can share with you to tell you what that sounds like, but it just sounded like impending doom coming my way. I know I'm being dramatic, but listen, if you're on an island that is like a football field and a half wide, and there's a hurricane coming right at you, and just 10 feet, 15 feet of storm swell would cover that whole island, I think you'd struggle a little bit too. But I was really, really struggling. There was 3 of us on the island, 3 Christians, and the 2 other guys didn't seem to be struggling as much as I was, but I was really struggling. And I remember getting up at 3 in the morning, going outside, facing that wind, thinking, maybe I'll have the faith to just command it to stop like Jesus did. And I was just struck with fear, and God said to me, you deal with many fears. Fear is something that Peter dealt with when he got out of the boat. Fear is something I told you last week that many of the Bible heroes dealt with. Abraham, Moses, Mary, Joseph, Peter, Paul, all of them dealt with fear along the way. They were afraid of something, but yet they moved forward and they trusted God. While the intensity of the fear may vary for each and every one of us, like I said, I was very fearful and these other 2 guys were not so much. It is typically present whenever God asks you to do something. Maybe God would ask you to share your faith with a friend at work. As soon as God speaks to you about something like that, fear tends to want to rise up inside of us. Maybe God would ask you to go on a mission trip. Maybe God would ask you to do something incredible for Him, but yet it's a very scary thing. When God asked me to go to Africa, it took me many, many years. I'm so thankful that God gave me that second chance to actually go, because I delayed it for so long, because I did not, deep down inside of me, want to go to Africa. But when I went, God blessed it, and God released so much more into our lives because of that. But fear likes to come in. Fear, you can't stop being afraid. You may think you can. When fear comes in and you just think you can push it off, you can overcome it, and maybe you've learned to do that in a certain sense. But you can't stop yourself from being afraid many times. There may be people out there that have such great faith that they can just push fear right out. But for the most of us, 98% of us, it's difficult to stop fear. You might get that phone call. You might get that email. You might get that person that says something to you, and fear just drops into your heart. You can't stop yourself from being afraid, but you can control how you respond to fear. Just want to make sure this is still going here. Person that says something. Yes, we're still going. I'm sorry about this, but I have to make sure that we have rock solid video this time, because I want to send you guys something that's actually going to be able to be heard. I was afraid that the video wouldn't work. Fear can paralyze you. Fear can control you. Fear can cage you. Fear likes to come and handcuff you so that you can't do anything. Many of us, sometimes when we get afraid, go and curl up in a corner and hide from the situation. There was 11 guys, 5, 10, 11. 11 guys in the boat still, curled up in a corner together, fearful. And Peter was out of the boat, walking on water. So many of us like to just curl up and try to forget about what's going on. OOTB, I looked it up this week. It was in my message, out of the box. And I thought, what does Google say about OOTB? Well, it says it's out of the box, not out of the boat. Sorry. Our theme is out of the boat, but OOTB on Google says, and you know Google, it knows everything. It says it means out of the box. Well, Journey Church, I've been saying that for over 3 years, that we need to be a church, and the church universal needs to get back to a place where we get out of the box. We get outside of the four walls. We get out where the people are. We reach them where they are. Yeah, we got to get out of the boat this year, but we got to get out of the box of where we like to hold God and where we like to keep our lives comfortable. You need to get out of the box this year too. You know, we read Matthew 14:22 last week, but I want to read a little bit more of it to you because I think you're going to find this very interesting. It says, immediately, and we talked about that word last week. Immediately, Jesus made his disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side, while he sent the multitudes away. And when he had sent the multitudes away, he went up to the mountain to pray by himself. Now when evening had come, he was alone there. But the boat was in the middle of the sea, tossed by the waves, for the wind was contrary. Now in the fourth watch of the night, Jesus went to them walking on the sea, and when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they screamed out, troubled, and said, "It is a ghost." And they cried out with fear. But immediately, again, second time, immediately, Jesus spoke to them, saying, "Be of good cheer, it is I, do not be afraid." And Peter asked him, he said, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." And so Jesus said to him, "Come." And when Peter had come down out of the boat, he walked on water to go to Jesus. That's awesome. But when he saw the wind was boisterous, he was afraid. Fear came in. And beginning to sink, he cried out and said, "Lord, save me." And immediately, immediately, 3 times, Jesus stretched out his hand and caught him and said, "O you of little faith, why did you doubt?" And when they got into the boat, the wind ceased. Then those who were in the boat worshipped him, saying, "Truly you are the Son of God." See, in verse 30 of chapter 14 here, we see Peter crying out. He says, when he saw that the wind was boisterous, he was afraid. And beginning to sink, he cried out, saying, "Lord, save me." Fear had overcome him. And I'm telling you, I believe fear would have overcome me too. You start sinking in water in the middle of a storm. Isaiah 41, and I'm just going to read a few of these scriptures. I don't have time to read all of them like I did on Sunday morning. This is just kind of the Coles Notes version of this message. "Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God." Psalm 56:3 says, "Whenever I am afraid, I will trust in you." Joshua 1:9 says, "Have I not commanded you, be strong and of good courage, do not be afraid." Philippians 4:6 and 7, "Be anxious for nothing. Be anxious for nothing. But in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be known unto God." Isaiah 41 again says, "Fear not, I will help you." Psalm 118, "The Lord is on my side, I will not fear." I mean, there's all kinds of other ones. Well, what do we do with this? You know, when I was standing facing that storm and the waves were beating against the reef and I was filled with fear, God showed up and said to me, "You are filled with a great amount of fears. You have many fears that you struggle with." And I said, "Lord, I know. And I'm sorry." And I asked him to protect me. I asked him to save me. I asked him to help me. And you know, God gave me strength in that storm. He gave me strength in that storm. And the next day, the storm was gone. It was a miracle. There was a miracle. And I'd love to tell you the rest of the story, but I don't have time right now. This is the Coles Notes, so can't give you everything. But it helped me years later when my wife went in for surgery, and she was in a 6-hour surgery, and they called a code blue, and the devil whispered in my ear, "Today I'm going to take your wife." I had a choice to make. Listen, walk through the halls, and I began to speak in my prayer language and call out to God, and everything was okay. There are times you will have to do things afraid, but do it. Move forward. And I would ask you today, what is it that God would have you get out of the boat to do this year? Is there something He would have you do to change in your prayer life? Is there something He would have you want to change in how you get into the Word and study the Word? Would He want you to share the gospel with your friends and your co-workers and your family? Would He want you to start a ministry? I don't know. I'm not trying to put things or ideas in your head. Only you know what God wants you to do. I want you to think about that as we go through the next few weeks. God is doing something incredible in our lives as we step out of the boat. God bless you. We'll see you